Good morning, Moray Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Berachot, and we are holding on Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Bet. On top of the Amud, the learning of Amud Yomi for the month of Av is sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Bayanfar for Rufashal Mav Shefa, but the Hamam, and also health and happiness of their children, Rafaela Miriam Bat Zipora, Hana Bat Zipora, Emuna Rahel Bat Zipora, and Sophia Sarah Bat Zipora. They should have much nahat from them. Amen. Amen. So we are continuing on the issues related to tefillin and the kavod of them. As we mentioned before, this is very appropriate as we have just covered these areas in our Daf Halacha, our daily page of Shulchan Aruch in the mornings. Tanu Rabbanan, fourth line down on 23b. Lo yohaz adam tefillin biyado v'sefer Torah b'zro'om. A person should not hold a sefer Torah in his arms, a tefillin in his hands, v'yitpalel, and daven. The reason being because you're concerned that maybe a subconscious concern that maybe chas v'shalom you're going to drop it from your hands, and that takes away from a person's kavanah in davening. This actually will become more interesting in just a moment. This is the first halacha of the Braita. The second halacha being v'lo yashtin bahem mayim v'lo yishan bahem. Then you should not go to urinate with tefillin on, and you cannot go to sleep with tefillin on. When you have them on, lo shenat keva v'lo shenat arai. As the Gemara also teaches us in Masechet Sukkah and Daf Chafvav on page 26, the Gemara there teaches us that sleeping doesn't really have keva or arai. Sleeping in Sukkah is more severe than eating in Sukkah in such way that eating outside Sukkah, when it's achilat arai, we call it, a temporary eating, you're eating a little rice, little fruits, vegetables, snacking outside Sukkah, that's mutar. Achilat keva, if you're setting yourself up for Suda already eating bread, that's what's asur outside the Sukkah. But the Gemara says, for shenat arai, sleeping even 5 minutes outside the Sukkah is asur, because the Gemara explains, Rashi explains there, by sleeping, there is no keva l'shena. Sometimes you sleep for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you go to a deep sleep and you're very much refreshed afterwards. The same halacha you see over here as well. That even shenat arai, even sleeping with tefillin on for 5 minutes, it will be asur. And what's the reason for it? We're going to see. Says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Sakin umaot v'ka'ara v'kikar harei elu kayotze bahem. Shmuel teaches that there are other items that are equal in halacha with the first halacha of the Braita that we learned. What was the first halacha of the Braita? You cannot hold a sefer Torah in your arms. You cannot hold a tefillin in your hand while davening because you're subconsciously concerned maybe you're going to drop them. You're not going to have kavanah in your tefillah. Says Shmuel is not only tefillin and sefer Torah. Anything of value or anything that you would concern your mind, even of not so much value, anything that you're concerned from dropping them, it's the same halacha. For instance, a sakin. If you're holding a sharp knife, you're worried that you're going to drop it. You're going to drop it on yourself and cut yourself. You're not going to have kavanah. Umaot, when you have money in your hand, you're worried you're going to drop any of the coins and they're going to roll away and get lost. But ka'ara, if you're holding some food in your hand, a bowl of soup, and you're worried that you're going to spill it, so of course you're not going to have kavanah, even though that's not so much of money concern. And kikar, a loaf of bread, because if you drop it, it's going to be getting dirty, and therefore you're still concerned, mentally concerned, and therefore it's not going to be working. So all of those are really concerns. A very interesting halachic debate nowadays is whether or not it's mutar to daven from your cell phone, right? Because cell phone is an item of value. If you drop it, then you have to get a new screen or a new phone. So can you hold the actual cell phone and daven from a Siddur app, the Tefillah, the Shemona Esrei? Or maybe it will fall under this category of halakha that you should not be holding anything of value in your hand, lest you're going to drop it, and therefore you're not going to have proper kavara in your tefillah. What do you mean? You're not doing, this is tefillah of Shemona Esrei.
About a baby.
You're not holding your hand. What about a baby? Same thing, right? These are all valuable questions. And again, by cell phone, your other problems with it as well, because if you're getting notifications inside the tefillah, imagine you say you're watching someone daven and in real tefillah, it's like, whew, right? You're getting notifications. That's of course, some of this the smart sidurim, they have actually an option that they turn off all of your notifications, override basically your phone. Of course, that's something that you should do if you're davening from it. It's a fascinating shiur. At some point, Shabbat afternoon, we'll have it. I'm not going to tell you what the maskana is going to be, but it's a fascinating shiur of halakha based on this very Gemara that we just learned. Okay,
it's like a siddur at that point.
That's the question, right? If you have an iPhone, I don't know what they're up to, 14, 15,
20.
right? No way. Yeah. So if you're up to one of those expensive items, so is that really considered that you're holding a siddur, or maybe siddur, even though that chas v'shalom we don't want to drop it, but if you drop it, well, nothing's going to happen to it. But your iPhone 14, if you drop it, there goes $1,500 or whatever it costs, right? So says the Gemara. And by the way, we said we're going to explain it. What's the reason of lo yishan bahem? If you look at Rashi says lo yishan bahem, that you should not sleep with them. Shema, maybe you're going to be afiach. Maybe a person is going to chas shalom come to let gas, and that is of course asur. So says the Gemara. Amar Rava, Amar Rav Sheshet. Rava said in the name of Rav Sheshet, the first wide line, let hilchata ki hai matnita. Remember this very well. He says halakha is not like this braita that we just learned. What part of it halakha is not like? The part that you would think less, the least. You would think that if any part of this braita is halakha, is what part? The part that it says you cannot urinate with tefillin on. You would think that's pretty pashut, right? So says Rava, that's not halakha. It's mutar to urinate with tefillin on. How do I know that this is not halakha? Says Rava, in the name of Rav Sheshet. The Bet Shammai, because this is the shita of Bet Shammai. And we all know already from the Gemara in Masechet Yevamot, Daf Gimal, other places, the halakha is never like Bet Shammai. It's always like Bet Hillel. So therefore, because this is Bet Shammai, halakha is not like this. Now, I'm going to give you a preface of what the Gemara is going to do. He's going to try to prove why he thinks this is Bet Hillel, and it can't be Bet Shammai. It's Bet Shammai, and it can't be Bet Hillel. The Gemara disproves his suggestion, and we're going to go back to a place that this braita actually is Bet Hillel, and halakha should be like this, that we just learned about urinating with tefillin on in a beta kiseh arai. Again, remember what we said yesterday. Yesterday we mentioned urinating is considered beta kiseh arai. You're not going to any set bathroom. You're just standing some corner of some road somewhere, and you're creating what we call a beta kiseh arai, a temporary beta kiseh, right? So why would Bet Hillel hold that is asur, while Bet Hillel in Amud Aleph told us that you could literally walk into a beta kiseh keva, a set beta kiseh, in order to urinate, having tefillin on. So that would not work. L'chora, that would be a contradiction within the Shita of Bet Hillel. So I'm just giving you a bird's eye view of what we're going to do in the next 10 lines, because if you don't have the bird's eye view, it gets a little complicated. So this is what's going to happen. Rav Sheshat said, it's not the halacha. Why isn't it the halacha? Because it's Bet Shammai. I'll try to prove it to you that it's Bet Shammai. The Gemara is going to shoot it down, and the Gemara is going to end up saying that it is Bet Hillel. And the halacha is like that it's asur to go to a Bet Kiseh arai to urinate, which stands in sharp contrast with what we learned in Bet Hillel's name previous day of going into Bet Kiseh kavua, a set Bet Kiseh to urinate with having tefillin on, being mutter. And then we're going to deal with it. This is what's going to happen in the next 10 lines. So let's go through it again. First wide line. The halacha is not like this braita, the Bet Shammai, because this is authored by Bet Shammai, and halacha is never like Bet Shammai. The Bet Hillel, if it is Bet Hillel, hashta Bet Kiseh kavua. Yesterday you told me that even a set Bet Kiseh, a set bathroom, shari, it's mutar to enter while having your tefillin on in order to urinate. Bet Kiseh arai mibaya. Is it even a question that you could walk into a place to urinate when it's not a Bet Kiseh, which we will call it Bet Kiseh arai, a temporary Bet Kiseh that's used for the first time as a Bet Kiseh now, and you're doing number one, urination is not asur. So why would it be even asur over here? So says the Gemara, Meitvim, they asked the question on this, that this cannot be Bet Shammai. Why not? Dvarim shehitarti lecha kan, asarti lecha kan. On this very braita, we learned that this is one of those things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. It says, things that I forbade you, I prohibited you to do here, I let you do there. It's talking about the contrast of the two Bet Kiseh together, Bet Kiseh kavua, compared to Bet Kiseh arai, a set bathroom to a temporary bathroom. And it says, what I forbade you to do in a set bath, in a temporary bathroom, I allowed you to do in a Bet Kiseh kavua, or vice versa. What I told you it's asur here, I told you it's mutar there. It doesn't say which one is which. But in one of them, something is asur, while that same thing is mutar in the other one. So it says the Gemara, let's go through understanding what this could mean according to the suggestion of the Gemara that we just had. Things that I allowed you here, I forbade you there. So says the Gemara, what does this mean? My left feeling, why don't we say that this is referring to tefillin in Bet Kiseh, right? This is talking about a contrast, a comparison between a set bathroom and a temporary bathroom. So why don't we say it's talking about aralacha, of entering a bathroom with tefillin on? And what would it mean? So if you say Bet Hillel, if you say it is Shita of Bet Hillel our braita, then it makes perfect sense. Because Bet Hillel have a Shita of leniency in Bet Kiseh kavua. Bet Hillel is the only one that has a serious leniency while discussing a set bathroom. Remember, what did Bet Shammai say in previous Amud? Bet Shammai said you could never, ever, it was Bet Hillel, Bet Shammai, and Rabbi Akiva. You remember? The three shitas. Bet Hillel said you could just go in, hold it in your hand. Gesundheit, have a nice day. Rabbi Akiva said, no, you have to wrap it in a bag and hold it in your hand, right? What did Bet Shammai say? You will never, ever, ever enter Bet Kiseh with tefillin in your hand. You cannot do it. Remember that? You put it in the kabi outside facing the Reshut HaRabim. That's what Bet Shammai said. So it makes no sense to say Dvarim shehitarti lecha kan. You were matter nothing in regards to tefillin, in regards to Bet Kiseh kavua. So it doesn't make sense to say it's Bet Shammai. It makes perfect sense to say it's Bet Hillel. Because Bet Hillel, you could say, Devarim she hitarti lecha kan, what I allowed you to do in a Bet HaKiseh Kavua, I answered you, I prohibited you to do in Bet HaKiseh Arai. At least the words read. Now you have to still see what logic is, right? Because the logic makes no sense. But at least the words make sense. That what I allowed you in a set bathroom, I prohibited you in a Bet HaKiseh Arai. Now you have to understand the logic. Why in the world would you be more stringent in a Bet HaKiseh Arai than a Bet HaKiseh Kavua? That we're going to deal with in a moment. But at least the words read. But if you say it's Bet Shammai, the words don't read even, because what did I allow you? You allowed me nothing in regards to tefillin by Bet HaKiseh Kavua. You said absolutely in X, you cannot enter Bet HaKiseh, even if you wrap it in your clothing and you're holding it in your hand, still is asur according to Bet Shammai, right? So says the Gemara, Bishlama Bet Hillel hitarti lecha kan Kavua. We could read it if it's Bet Hillel, that it's saying hitarti lecha kan, I allowed you here means Bet HaKiseh Kavua. I allowed you to enter with tefillin. Asarti lecha kan. In the other one, I prohibited you to do it, which is Bet HaKiseh Arai, a temporary bathroom. And ayamrat Bet Shammai. If you say it's Bet Shammai, halo sharu v'lo midi. They did not allow anything in Bet HaKiseh Kavua. So says the Gemara, Kitanya hahi. It says no, it's not talking about tefillin. You know what that Braita is speaking about? When it says, things that I allowed you here, I prohibited you there. It's not talking about tefillin. It's talking about another completely different halakha of bathroom. There is an inyan of tzniut, of modesty, of attire, even when it comes to men, and even when it comes to outside bathroom. The second siman of Shulchan Aruch, siman bet, Shulchan Aruch says how a person has to be mindful and careful to cover themselves at all times, imagining another person is there, because it is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there, right? So when you even change dress, says the Shulchan Aruch, you have to do it under the cover as much as possible, and so on and so forth. So there are halachot in bathroom as well, that you don't expose your body when it's not needed. So says the Braita, Linyan tefach v'tefachayim. It is discussing, this is fifth white line for those who just came. Inyan tefach v'tefachayim is halacha of exposing yourself a tefach or two tefachim. The Tani, Chada, we learned in a Braita, Keshehu nifne, when a person goes to bathroom, megalela horav tefach, you expose yourself from behind only one tefach, ulefanav tefachayim, and in the front two tefachim, right? The reason for that is because in the front you have nisosot nitazim, you have more messiness potentially by urine, because it shoots out and it could make more mess than the back. Therefore, you need more area exposed to keep your clothing clean still, right? Therefore, you expose yourself one tefach there, two tefachim here. But Tanya Eidach, there's a stira, there is a contradiction with another Braita that says lachorav tefach, in the back tefach, same thing. But lefanav lo klum, in front nothing. So says the Gemara, my love, idi ve'idi be'ish. Why don't we understand both of these Braitas to be talking about a man going to the bathroom? Velo kasha, and still there's no stira. Kan legdolim, kan lektanim. One of them is when a person is using the bathroom for urinating. The other one is when he is using it for everything. But tisbra, says the Gemara, does that make sense at all? If you're only using it for urinating, why do you need to expose yourself in the back altogether? Just say lefanav tefachayim. Just say you expose yourself in the front. Why do you have to expose yourself from the back? So it doesn't make sense. Ella, therefore, the only way to reconcile the apparent stira contradiction of these two braitas together is one of them is speaking about a man, the other one is speaking about a woman. Man needs to expose himself from the front. The woman does not need to expose herself from the front. Both of them are talking about using bathroom completely. Velo kasha, and it's not a stira. Habe'ish, habe'isha. One is speaking about a man that needs tefach ma'achorav, tefachayim milefanav. One is speaking about isha that is, ma'achorea tefach, ulefanea velo klum. So it says the Gemara, ihachi, hate katani Allah. If that's the case, in other words, let's before I read this line, let's go back to our zoom out to our bird's eye view. We mentioned that this is Bet Shammai. He wanted to suggest that this is Bet Shammai, right? So we said, okay, if it's Bet Hillel, it makes sense that you are saying what I allowed you here, I prohibited you there. So if our Braita is Bet Hillel, it makes perfect sense. If it's Bet Shammai, it doesn't read, because Bet Shammai doesn't have any leniencies of tefillin going into bathroom. So no, it's not talking about tefillin in the bathroom. It's talking about this whole halakha of exposing yourself and so on. That's why it's Bet Shammai, and it's speaking about that halakha, not tefillin, right? That's what we suggested so far. So it says the Gemara, okay, fine, you reconciled reading it, but it still doesn't work. You know why? End of the same Braita continues and says, this halakha that I just told you is a kal vachomer that makes no sense. The end of the Braita says, what I just told you, the halakha I just taught you, if you would want to think about it in a kal vachomer method, it would make absolutely no sense. What's kal vachomer? Kal vachomer is, if this is like this for sure is like that, right? That's a kal vachomer. So it says the Gemara, if you read it like that, the end of the same Braita says, this is a kal vachomer, this is a logical comparison that doesn't make sense. She'en alav tshuva, you can't answer it. My en alav tshuva. So says the Gemara, if you want to assume two things, A, that this Braita is Bet Shammai, B, the Bet Shammai is speaking about not entering bathroom with tefillin, but rather, say, exposing yourself in the bathroom, then this third piece of puzzle doesn't fit. The end of the Braita says this is something that in a logical discourse makes no sense. And says the Gemara, what do you mean? My en alav tshuva. What do you mean it doesn't make any logical sense? It makes perfect sense. Darkad milta hachi. The reason that a man has to expose himself from front to tfachim and a woman doesn't is because it makes absolutely sense. Because her anatomy is made in a way that she doesn't. It's darkad milta, is her way to do it like this. It makes perfect sense logically why the difference between man and woman, why here it is tutfachim in the front and there is nothing. So how do you read the end of the Braita altogether? Says the Gemara, Ela lav tefillin. So it's not talking about that. It's talking about tefillin. It's talking about tefillin, and it is not Bet Shammai. Can't be Bet Shammai because it says you can't read it with tefillin according to Bet Shammai. It's who? It's Bet Hillel. And once you say it's Bet Hillel, it is the tiyufta of Rava in the name of Rav Sheshat that Rava said in the name of Rav Sheshat in the first white line. What? He wanted to say what? The halakha is not like this Braita because it's Bet Shammai. So we're going back full circles. This that you said halakha is not like this Braita is wrong, X'd out. We completely threw it out. We tried every way to be able to stand, for this to stand, and it can't stand. It can't be Bet Shammai. It is Bet Hillel, and therefore halakha is like this, that you cannot go to urinate in a Bet HaKisei Arai while having tefillin on, which now you have to really understand it, because Bet Hillel last page said you could even walk with your tefillin into a Bet HaKisei Kavua. So you're telling me you could go into Bet HaKisei Kavua, a full-fledged Bet HaKisei, but you can't walk on the side of the road in a Bet HaKisei Arai and urinate. Why? And that, by the way, that's the kal vachomer she'en alav tshuva. When the Braita tells you it's a kal vachomer, it's something that doesn't stand a logical discourse. That's exactly what he's saying. That I would say, outside this, in the vacuum, I would say, if you're telling me that I could walk with my tefillin into a set Bet HaKisei, with my tefillin to urinate, I should for sure, Kal Vachomer, I should for sure be able to walk into just a corner of a Bet HaKisei Arai and urinate. That would be the logical discourse. And you're telling me that that's wrong. What I could do in Bet HaKisei Kavua, I cannot do in Bet HaKisei Arai. That's a Kal Vachomer She'en Alav Teshuva. It's a discourse that makes no sense. So it perfectly fits with Bet Hillel. So therefore, this is Bet Hillel. And it's halacha that you cannot walk into a Bet HaKisei Arai with your tefillin to urinate. Okay? That's what we're holding right now. Right. Now, we have to understand why that is. Yes?
I have a question. This Baraita, the things that I permitted for you here, I forbade for you there. How did they connect it to the situation at all? It seems like it came out of nowhere.
It's a Braita that you're correct. It's not the same Braita. It's talking about a halacha in a comparison between Bet HaKisei Kavua and Bet HaKisei Arai. Right? That something is asur in Bet HaKisei Arai that is mutar in Bet HaKisei Kavua. Right? That's how we understood it right now. When we suggested that this should be Bet Shammai, also, we're comparing the halachot of Bet HaKisei, but we were trying to say that it's comparing the halachot of exposing yourself in the Bet HaKisei. So it's a Braita that's mentioned about the halachot of bathroom, but we didn't know, it's not clear what it's referring to. Right? So says the Gemara. Hachi Kamar. So says the Gemara, at the end of the Mikol Makom, we said it's Tiyufta, the Rava Amar, Rav Sheshat Tiyufta. The Gemara says this is a bomb kasha on Rava in the name of Rav Sheshat, and therefore we threw out the halacha of Rava in the name of Rav Sheshat, and we're done with that. So the Gemara says, okay, after everything said and done, Mikol Makom, at the end of the day, kasha. It's a question, the question stands, what is the logical reason for this? Hashta Bet HaKisei Kavua Shari. You told me already that even Bet HaKisei Kavua is mutar. If Bet HaKisei Kavua, a set bathroom, is mutar to urinate with tefillin in your hands, Bet HaKisei Arai lo kol sheken. A Bet HaKisei Arai should not be kol sheken that you could hold your tefillin in your hand to go to Bet HaKisei Arai. Why wouldn't you be able to hold your tefillin in your hand and go to Bet HaKisei Arai? Says the Gemara. This is what he's saying. Bet HaKisei Kavua deleka nitzosot. There is one difference between a set bathroom where you sit and do your thing, and a Bet HaKisei Arai, which is standing some corner of some street doing what you're doing. One of them is sitting, one of them is standing. What's the difference? There's one positive in Bet HaKisei Kavua that you don't have in Bet HaKisei Arai. Yes, it's cleaner because when you're sitting down, it's not, the gravity is not so much. Like there's a physics law of impact and pressure. Depends on three variables of the point of impact, the weight, and the height, right? For those who are good in physics, right? So when you're standing, that splashes all over the place because the pressure is more. When you're sitting, there's no pressure, it just goes. It doesn't make yourself or your shoes dirty. So usually when you're standing after you're done, you have to wipe your shoes, your clothing, whatever it is, with your hand. And if you have tefillin in your hands, it's disrespectful for tefillin to be in your hand when you're going to be wiping your urine. When you're sitting, you don't have that problem. You sit, you do your thing, you get up, you leave. You know, there's a halakha in Talmud Chazal that you absolutely, first of all, it's a whole halakha that you can't even urinate in a regular ground that's tough. If it's not afar tichoach, while standing up, because it splashes all over, and people think that this person is a krut shofcha. This person has a problem with their area of brit in a way that they cannot have children, and they'll say, oh, wait a second, but he has children. Oh, it must be. It's not his, right? So therefore, stretch, right? But it shows you how judgmental the mind of a human being could be. We just judgment machines. So therefore, Chazal say you have to make sure to clean. Even if you have that, you cannot walk outside with having splashes of urine all over your shoes. You have to wipe them, you have to clean them. So therefore, By Bet HaKiseh Arai, part and parcel of it is you're going to use your hands to wipe yourself, your shoes, whatever, your clothing. But like it says, Kavua, you don't have that problem. Hence, when you're holding your tefillin in your hands, which one is easier to allow you to hold your tefillin in your hands? Bet HaKiseh Kavua. So therefore, he says that's the logic. You're wondering why you're allowing me to do something in Bet HaKiseh Kavua with tefillin that you're not allowing me to do with Bet HaKiseh Arai. That's the logic. You know what the next step of the Gemara is going to be? Next step of the Gemara is going to be, well, you told me it's going to make no sense. This makes perfect sense, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. It says it's going to make no sense, but the Gemara asks the question anyways, why are you doing this, right? And the Gemara gives a perfect answer. And what's the message? You said it's not going to make sense. It's amazing, right? So
stand-up urinals that are...
We don't have, and no, this is talking about not urinal. Urinal, by the way, is not so pashut if it's considered Bet HaKiseh Arai, because that's a set place to urinate. It's about Bet HaKiseh. It's made. It's a set Bet HaKiseh.
The urinal is not around the wall. It's a solid structure, and it splashes.
Okay.
So technically,
It's no. You have to get a doctorate PhD in that. It's doesn't have to splash.
You need lessons.
What kind of gastroenterologist are you?
What about a portable potty? Is that considered a big say, all right?
We're gonna discuss that next tomorrow. Says the Gemara. Let's we have to cover some ground. You say, wait a second, if you say that, why in the world is that in alaf tshuva? This makes perfect sense. You told me it's not gonna make sense. Tshuva ma'aliyatahi. This is a perfect answer. Says the Gemara, Hachikama. This is what he's saying. Ha milta taitila betoratama velo taitila bekal vachomer. The Gemara is saying this issue, you can think about it as a logical discourse when you think about the reason, but if you think about it in the parameter of Kal Vachomer, it makes no sense. In other words, if you think about the logic behind the halacha, which the logic is because of the splash, it makes sense, right? But if you think about it as, well, you allowed me to enter a full-fledged Bet HaKiseh, the Kal Vachomer of it, in the world of Kal Vachomer, would be, so Kol Sheken, for sure you should allow me to walk into a Bet HaKiseh Arai. And and you tell me it's Asur. That's a Kal Vachomer that makes, in the world of Kal Vachomer, comparisons, it makes no sense. But once you start thinking about the logic would dictate that you should go against that Kal Vachomer and say that no, in Bet HaKiseh Kavua is mutar, and in Bet HaKiseh Arai it's Asur, because the reason is using your hands to clean yourself afterwards, which would be disrespectful if you're holding tefillin in your hands, and that would make perfect sense in a logical discourse, but you cannot think about it in the world of Kal Vachomer, of comparisons just on surface base. That's what the Gemara means when it says Kal Vachomer she'en alav tshuva. If you would think about this in the world of Kal Vachomer, then yes, in Achinami en alav tshuva, there's no discourse, there's no answer to this. Yes.
Rabbi? So you're assuming in an established bathroom, you have to go, what's number 1P?
Mm-hmm.
You have to sit, but people are not going to sit for that.
But again, in Bet HaKiseh Kavua, usually they would sit down because it was made in such way that people would sit down. And also, even if a person would stand up, the truth is, the Gemara says Bet HaKiseh Shel Parsai, it was a large hole in the ground that went more than 10 tfachim down and 4 tfachim away. So it would be no splashes really. It's not like urinating on the ground right next to your shoes. So even if you stand, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll make it distinct. This one usually is sitting, the other one is usually standing. Okay. It seems like you're not coming to the Mishnah Berurah, David. Yeah, you're gonna change that. And we actually at length we talked about this. When you can. Generally speaking, of course, we say you should not nowadays. But again, these are some of those halachot that we're still in the middle of doing them. We're still in the next siman. We're going to be discussing more of that. B'ezrat Hashem. So still not late. Says the Gemara, 2 dots, middle of the Amud.
Talking about wearing, talking about holding it?
Yeah, holding.
No, actually wearing.
No. Tanu Rabbanan, harotze likanes liskudat keva. What do you do in the conduct of a person that's going to eat lunch or early supper? It's still during the day, and you want to eat. Can you go with your tefillin? We mentioned that they used to wear tefillin the whole day. Can you sit and eat a full suda with tefillin on? Says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned. If you want to sit and set yourself up for a suda, it's not just snack, it's a sudat keva. Now, before we speak about tefillin, there's a halacha that a person is not derech eretz, is not proper conduct to sit, start a suda, and then excuse yourself from everyone that's sitting around and go to bathroom. You want to do the bathroom, and Rambam actually learns that this is health related as well. Rambam understands in Hilchot Deot that you want to have a clean stomach, right? That your large intestine should be clean and cleared off for the system to start digesting new food. So it's health related as well. But this is simply put, a halachot of derech eretz. You don't want to sit with people, set yourself up with suda, and then excuse yourself and go for half an hour and be missing. So you want to do everything beforehand. So what do you do if you're trying and you don't feel a need for a bathroom? So it says the Gemara, you could bring it upon yourself. And this is, again, something that in gastroenterology nowadays, they will tell you to do as well. To sit up, get up, walk, and so on. That comes really from the Gemara. Says the Gemara, you go 10 times, each time 6 feet, sit and get up. Or the other way around, you do 4 times 10 amot, 4 trips, so to speak, rounds of 10 amot each, and you sit and get up between each one. And then you go to bathroom, and then afterwards you start your suda. Okay, great. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Now we started talking about suda. How about tefillin? That's the point that the Gemara brings us here, is because of tefillin. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, hanichnas l'sudat keva. When you start the sudat keva, choletz tfilav v'achar kach nichnas. Before you enter, you take off your tefillin, you put it away, and then you enter. You don't even enter a suda with your tefillin on. That's Rabbi Yitzchak. Upligat Rabbi Chia, Damar Rabbi Chia. And this stands in contrast to what Rabbi Chia taught, because Rabbi Chia says, you go to the suda, you take it off right there, and then you put it on the table next to you. Why do you put it on the table right away? You put it on the table that it's mezuman, it's right in front of you, that when you're done, you put it on right away. This way, you minimize the amount of time that you don't have tefillin on, right? So it says, the Gemara, that's what Rabbi Chia holds. V'chen hadurlo, and that's the proper way of doing it. Ve'ad emat, until when you keep them off. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak atzman bracha. Until you are ready to say Birkat Hamazon, then you put on the tefillin, you wash your hands from the dirtiness they used to eat with their hands. You wash your hands, my machronim, you clean yourself, you put on tefillin, and then you bench with tefillin on. By the way, why do you take them off? Why can't you eat with tefillin? Sleeping, you told me already, because Shema Yafiach. How about eating? Because eating, especially Sudat Keva, they used to have also the spring waters were not available necessarily, and also because they had fatty food and so on and so forth, natural food, the way it is, wasn't skim milk and it wasn't lean fat meat and so on. They consumed a lot of wine as their regular mashke. Instead of water, they drank wine in the Suda. And you know how that works. Sometimes you drink a little bit more and become intoxicated to some level. And that's not kavod for tefillin. Because there's a chance of intoxication, that's not considered a respectful status of the person's state of mind for a person that's wearing the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on him. So you take it off, put it in the side until you're done. You say, okay, Becher Gozash. I ate Suda, it was good, it was fine, and I'll put on tefillin afterwards before benching. Okay, the next Gemara is going to be about gathering your tefillin and putting it on your bed when you do at night, or you want to take a nap, or you want to go to a place that you can't have tefillin. Can you put your tefillin under your pillow at night? You want to save it. We spoke about how rats were all over the place, snakes were all over the place, listim were all over the place. Tefillin is a valuable item. Can I take it off and put it under my pillow at night and I'm sleeping? My wife is there, I'm there, clothing, not clothing. Is that mutar asur? It's something fascinating that B'ezrat Hashem we're going to discuss in the next shiur.
Remember, what if you're intoxicated after the meal and you used to put on